Good evening. My name is Joe Sulak. I'm with the Department of Economics, and I'd like to welcome you all to the 14th Annual International Forum. Thank you all for coming out this evening, and I think you'll find that it is time well spent. Our student presenters represent 4 countries from 3 continents. They'll be talking, each of them be talking for roughly 10 to 15 minutes, and I ask that you hold your questions until all the speakers are through. And the lineup for the evening is as follows. The lead-off speaker, so to speak, is Nicole from Mexico. Here, wave to, there you go. In the second position is Zoe from France. And in the third position is Noora from Finland. You're allowed to wave, Noora. I mean, it's okay. You know. And the cleanup speaker, so to speak, is Nambi from Kenya. And while each of their countries are unique, they will be addressing a number of common elements. For example, they will be talking about the influence of women, the influence of religion, the situation of women, a few things about the U.S. that they find appealing, and a few aspects about their country that they especially miss. I think you'll find them informative, entertaining, and they might even enchant you. So without further ado, Nicole, lead us off there, lady.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 14th Annual International Forum. Thank you for coming. My name is Nicole Schon, and I am a marketing and French major here at UNCA, as well as a member of the University Women's Tennis Team. I am originally from Mexico City, but I am now living in Cancun, Mexico. So I know many of you are probably thinking, who is this girl? She has blonde hair, blue eyes, and she's representing Mexico. Which leads me to 2 common misconceptions. The first, that all Mexicans look alike. So, although the majority of the population is mestizo, white Mexicans are among the 3 main groups in the country. Most have descendants from Spain, Britain, Italy, Germany, and even Russia. The second misconception is that Mexicans are generally not trustworthy and often involved in illegal activities like druggings and muggings. Now, I must admit, although this is a problem in Mexico, I do not think that it is fair to define the entire population by a stereotype. In fact, Mexicans value family above everything, as well as trust, respect, and hard work. Now, although Mexico's population is very diverse, the same cannot be said about religion. Although religious tolerance does exist for religions such as Islamic, Buddhism, and even Judaism, the majority of the population is Catholic, and about half of people attend church weekly. People are passionate about the sermons, and they take what the priest says very seriously. It is traditional for people to pray before meals and give thanks before bedtime too. Given this, I think you might be surprised to learn that there is a separation between church and state. Public schools should be non-religious, and the government does not provide any contributions to the church. Further, divorce is legal, abortion is generally legal, and birth control in Mexico is widespread. I also think that people are surprised to learn that Mexico is not a totally male-dominated society. Traditionally, men and women have had separate roles, but during the past 50 years, these roles have changed considerably. Because of education, women are much more active in Mexico, and more women marry later in life and are able to attend school. A great number of women are doing roles that used to be done solely by men, like politics, engineering, and even journalism. To this day, though, I must say that women still earn less than men for many of the same positions. A high percentage of the population still continues to believe in traditional roles for men and women. In other words, Mexican women have a high degree of freedom in Mexico. It would not be accurate to say, however, that the political and economic freedom that they have in the US is the same. Now, I am, of course, a UNCA student, and I have spent a considerable amount of time in the US. So there are many things that I really enjoy about the US. The first is that I think the US has really defined the sense of female economic independence for men. More and more single women and separated women are managing work and family responsibilities and making their careers a high priority in their lives. To me, that is such an inspiring and exciting part of living in 2011 and in the US, and in showing future generations what women are capable of accomplishing independent from men. Another thing that I really like about the US is the quality of medical care. Although I am from Mexico City, I was actually born in Houston. When doctors told my mom that she would be having triplets and that we would be several months premature, they suggested that she go to the US, as it was not a common procedure seen at the time. Shortly after I was born, we did return to Mexico City, but I owe my life to the doctors and the facilities that saved me. I can't say enough about the educational opportunities. What I have realized being here is that nowhere else in the world do you have the opportunity to play a sport and get an education at the same time. I like the fact that you can be a scholar athlete. I also like how you have 2 years to try out many areas of study. I bet someone out there switched their major in their junior year from international studies perhaps to marketing, much like I did. In Mexico, though, you go straight into your major, and if you switch, you have to basically start over from your freshman year. One more thing I like about the US is that there appears to be a separation of economic and political power. This doesn't seem to be true in Mexico. If you have the money, you have the power, unfortunately. And Mexico has a very unequal distribution of wealth, so small amounts of people hold the economic power and thus a large influence on the government. I am, of course, from Mexico, so there are many things that I equally like about Mexico. For example, I feel like what is expected from children in the US by their parents and in society in Mexico is very different. Most American parents give their children a great deal of freedom and responsibility, a little too much in my opinion. At 16, the majority of teenagers have cars. At 18, many are working to pay their own way through college, and a great deal move out of their house. Adolescence, then, in my eyes, for an American teenager, is a time of freedom, responsibility, and experimentation. I like the fact that in Mexico, children have boundaries. Parents are seen as the teachers and role models that must prepare them for adulthood. Nevertheless, teenagers in Mexico tend to stay close to home and close to their families, and are generally not pressured to be financially independent from their parents. In fact, the majority of Mexican students tend to stay at home well through college and even well into their 20s. I enjoy the sense of Mexican collegiality. For instance, when someone says, "How are you doing? ¿Cómo estás?" It is sincere, and I feel like people really want to know how you're doing. This may extend to parties or get-together. Let's say I were to walk into a room with friends. It is common courtesy to go around and greet every person with a kiss. On the cheek, of course. This is a great conversation starter and is much easier for people to interact as a group. Not saying goodbye as well may be seen as rude and may often offend people. With romantic issues as well, I still find that Mexicans are a little bit more traditional than in the US. You see more men opening doors and pulling out chairs, and it is common for the men to ask the women out on dates and pay the cost of the evening's outings. This may seem old-fashioned, but I personally really like it. Generally, I have to say that it is not the women being unwilling or unable to pay, but rather it is a sign of good manners, and it is seen as a thoughtful gesture. Now, this may seem really cheesy, but I know growing up, my mom was serenaded multiple times with mariachi. She would wake up and find that as she would look over her balcony, she would find a band of mariachi singing to her and her date standing right next to them. Like many places, Mexico takes a lot of pride in their country. We take pride in this, in our music, in our cuisine, and of course, football. Mexican families value eating meals together as a family, especially the comida, or dinner, which is seen as a valuable time to interact and may last up to several hours. Which leads me to alcohol. A glass of wine or tequila are often accompanied with meals. Although you must be 18 to legally buy alcohol, you can drink at a much earlier age, and many go out to dance club in their early teens, which is a lot of fun. For me, because you learn to drink from an early age and you are typically around your parents when you're drinking, you learn to do it more responsibly. For example, last year the entire tennis team came to my house. Sure enough, the first thing that my mom offered them was tequila. So all the girls can't believe it, and they start downing shots left and right, and my mom is like, no. You know, the point is to enjoy it, to make it last half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. And so I think the purpose of drinking is not so much to get drunk, but it's to socialize and to loosen up. I have learned so many great things during my time in the US and have met so many amazing people. I am proud forever of where I am from, and I am really pleased to have had the opportunity to present to you and tell you a little bit about my country. I'd like to leave you with the famous Mexican saying, "Todos podemos aprender de uno al otro." We can all learn from each other. Our next speaker, Zoe, will tell you a little bit about France. Thank you.
Good evening. First, I want to thank you all for coming out this evening. Given my accent, you might guess that I'm from France. And if so, you would be right. My name is Zoe. I came to the United States last semester for the first time, but my family is still in France and I'm living there for the rest of the time. You might be surprised, but I'm not from Paris. Yes, you can be French and not living in Paris. I'm living in Sedan, a city located 2 hours from Paris. I'm a freshman. I'm planning to major in mathematics, and I'm playing on the tennis team, just like Nicole. If I say France, what comes to mind? Fashionable people? Good wine and good cheese? Argumentative people? Paris and the Eiffel Tower? I have to admit that if those are your thoughts, they are good images, but there is a lot more to say about France, and I'm here to give you a more complete idea. As you can see, I'm a woman, and I don't have to complain about my situation in France. We are free, we can potentially get any jobs, we are in executive position, and we are active in political life. Professionally, the difference is in salaries. There is still a difference of 10% between male and female wage for the same job in the same company. In politics, women have a significant place as voters as well as politicians. More than half of the voters were women in 2009, and in 2007, a female, Ségolène Royal, was almost elected president. Even if I cannot claim that France provides a perfect gender equality, there has been a big improvement over time. But in my opinion, there is still a way to go. What especially bothers me is that women are still performing most of the domestic work. I have to admit that men are getting better cooking and taking care of children, as you can see. But they can still improve a lot about the cleaning. Nicole told you that Christianity is Mexico's main religion, and people openly express their religion's beliefs. It appears to me that this is also true in America. And on paper, France looks much like Mexico and the US. That is, most French claim to be Christian. But this is misleading. The French rarely attend church except on special occasions such as Christmas. They rarely pray, and the public display of religious pendant, for example, is illegal in school. Let me emphasize that I'm generalizing. Even if most French are not especially religious, you certainly can find very serious and dutiful Christians. The importance of religion is one of the numerous differences between France and America. But I do see a similarity in the economies of each of these nations. Unfortunately, this is an unpleasant similarity. The French economy is not doing well, and it's hard to find jobs. The economy has especially affected the villages outside the big cities. If you go to France and drive out of Paris, you will see very small villages, which were much bigger a few years ago, and cities, which inversely are getting bigger. What happens is that people move towards city trying to find jobs. Let me give you a personal example. My mom lived in a farmhouse with her family. She went to school in village by bus. My grandparents were farmers, and they didn't need to go to the city, which was 15 minutes away. They had all what they needed in the village. But students now are going to university, and people don't want to be farmer anymore. So villages empty to fill cities. For example, the village where my mom lived, UNCA, was made up of 200 inhabitants, and now there are no more than 50 inhabitants. So we have seen that France and America share similarities as Western developed countries, but there are also many differences that make them unique. I will tell you what I enjoy about being an American student here since last semester. I agree with Nicole. Your academic system is very enjoyable for French people like me. I like the fact that you can try many different classes before choosing your major, and also that you can change your major without starting at the beginning as a freshman. As in Mexico, in France, you have to choose your major in your senior year in high school, and if you change your mind, you start over at the beginning of a new major as a freshman. I also like the fact that you can be a scholar athlete. And this is the reason why I came here. In France, once again, you have to choose sport or school. And there is one last thing I do like here. When it snows, classes can be cancelled. When I told that to my friend in France, they didn't believe me. In France, you would have class even if 5 people can go to their classes. There are more things I do like about America, but I will now tell you what I like when I come back in France. I have realized that our transportation system is great. You don't need a car. You can move inside the city by bus and from one city to another by train. For example, I'm exactly 2 hours from Paris by train, while if I'm driving, it may last 2 hours or 4 hours, depending on the traffic. What about French food? I admit that American breakfast is delicious, but French bread, French cheese, tartiflette, raclette are more than delicious. If some of you come to France, let me invite you to come taste the hot bread of my mom, just taken out of the oven and put down pieces of camembert. But more than the food itself, the period of the meal is important in France. Lunch, but especially dinner, is taken with family or sometimes friends. It can easily last 1 hour for a normal meal every day of the week, and 5 hours or more on Sunday. It's a privileged moment to talk and see each other during the day. Another thing I really miss about France, and you need to keep in mind that I'm not a Parisian woman, is village dances. What are village dances? People of all age gather outdoors in the village square with friends, music, and beers. We dance, talk, and drink. Yes, there is no limited age in France to drink. It lasts from 10 p.m. to 5 in the morning, and don't forget to pitch your tent in the field nearby, because you will be better not driving home after. It may not be as glamorous as a club in Paris, but it definitely is much more fun. I'm pleased that I had the opportunity to say something about France, and I really appreciate your attention tonight. I hope you have learned something about the picture I left you from my country, because I have learned a lot from coming here. And before I leave you with Noora, I will share a short message in French. On peut apprendre de chacun, which means we can learn from each other.
My name is Noora Viljanmaa. I'm a freshman here at UNCA, planning to double major in international studies and German. It is an honor being here today, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my home country of Finland. Let me start off with some general points. Finland is about the size of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia combined, and has a total population of about 5 million. It probably seems like there's a lot of space and very little people. Well, you're right, since 3/4 of the total land area consists of forest. Finland is also frequently called the country of lakes, since there are almost 200,000 lakes and 180,000 islands. 2/3 of the population lives in cities, the largest city being Helsinki, the capital of Finland, with a population of about 600,000, and which is about the size of half of Charlotte. I myself am from Tampere, about 1.5 hours from the capital, with a population of about 200,000. On paper, Finland and the United States seem quite similar in the terms of religion. Why do I say this? Well, nearly all Finns are baptized and a member of some type of Christian church. Plus, you find, just like in the United States, a wide variety of religions. You will find some Jewish and Islamic congregation, but predominantly Christian. However, I also do see some major differences in religion. Religious instruction is encouraged in Finnish public schools. The instruction is not some sort of religious indoctrination. Instead, it's about ethics and morals and learning about various different religions. Another major difference is the practice of religious worship. In the US, or so it seems to me, churches are well attended on Sundays. This is not true in Finland. You might therefore think that Finns are simply religious on paper, but this also is not true, and Finns simply worship in a different way. The churches are open pretty much 24/7, And people take advantage of this to come and pray anytime they want to, and also seek the religious counsel of ministers. Most of the people that come are women, leading me to the role of women in Finland. Finland was the first European country to grant women the right to vote. Finnish women have enjoyed more rights for a longer time than most women around the world. Women are considered equal to men and are free to pursue the same education, profession, and political rights as men. But I must say that this is not unusual for a European country. However, I must tell you that I'm especially proud of the fact that Finland has had a female president since the year 2000, and even prouder of the fact that she was immediately re-elected in 2006. In many ways, Finland has been and continues to be ahead of its time. But living here in the United States has been amazing. During the past few years, I've noticed many differences and also similarities between Finland and the United States. Of course, it is hard to compare the entire United States to the tiny country of Finland, which is about the size of a few states. But I will base my points on my own experience. There are many unique aspects of living in the United States that I really appreciate. Probably due to its large size, the United States offers a broad range of cultures and environments. There's so much to explore. Every single state is very distinctive and has something completely different to offer. American people are generally very open, friendly, and welcoming to others. It is such a large country with so many different identities and nationalities that it truly embraces diversity. I have also noticed that the sense of community is very present in America. I had never been part of community service organizations before moving here, but now I truly enjoy active volunteering and like being involved in different community projects, where I get to meet amazing people. Everything is big and effective in America. Typical family houses have plenty of spacious rooms and large kitchens with huge appliances. Sometimes it seems to me that there's too much space. Cars are very large and parking spaces therefore spacious. The grocery stores have huge carts and plenty of choices. Everything seems big and oversized in comparison to Finland. In Finland, the largest milk container is about 1/4 of the American standard gallon. The silverware, cups, and plates used in America seems gigantic in comparison to the European ones we brought with us. School spirit is also very unique here in the United States, and the idea of team building is promoted through the American education system. During high school, teachers frequently incorporated group projects and teamwork, which was fun and also taught you to cooperate with your peers with different perspectives. In Finland, the school days are much shorter, but we do not have as many extracurricular activities related to school. As Nikki and Zoe mentioned, in the US, the school system is unique in the sense that students are allowed and even encouraged to pursue athletics in addition to academics. Almost all schools here have very competitive athletic teams, which is very rare in Finland. Now, I would like to move to some aspects of Finland that I really appreciate. Living most of my life in major European cities, I have gotten used to the commuter lifestyle and, just like Zoe, really miss reliable public transportation. Here in North Carolina, in fact, that there's no need to own a car in Finland is definitely a plus, since the cost of owning a car is extremely high. Simply the cost of driver's education and license is about $3,000 in Finland. In addition to that fee, car prices, gas, and the cost of maintenance are much higher than here. Finland is known for its high standard of living, especially with the free health care. Let me give you a personal example with the quality of the health care. When I was living in a different European country and had significant dental problems, my parents would take me on a regular basis to Finland to be treated with proper dental care. In addition to the health care, the Finnish people enjoy a free education. Even universities are entirely free of cost. Since government supports students to pursue higher education, Finland is known for its effective public education system. High school students in Finland rarely get more than half an hour of homework a night. They have no school uniforms, no honor societies, no valedictorians, no tardy bells, no classes for the gifted. And there's little standardized testing. Few parents agonize over college, and kids don't start school until the age of 7. And still, Finland, according to major international surveys, has the best education system in the world. The key words in Finnish education policy are quality, efficiency, equity, and internationalization. I was not very surprised by the results of a recent 2010 Newsweek study, about which my German professor told me last semester. Newsweek had studied the following scenario. If you were born today, which country would provide you the very best opportunity to live a healthy, safe, reasonably prosperous, and upward mobile life? For the special report, Newsweek focused on 5 categories of national well-being: education, health, quality of life, economic competitiveness, and political environment. The result was obvious: Finland. But doesn't it almost seem too good to be true? Knowing that Finnish people enjoy a high standard of living and earning high wages, why doesn't everybody move there then? I really don't like economics, but as you know, there's no such thing as a free lunch. The catch is the taxes are very high. Almost for every dollar you earn, the government will take half of it. Living here in North Carolina has been a very valuable experience, and I will never regret moving here. But I will always remember my roots and be proud of my nationality. Every country has its positive and negative aspects, but every nation also has something unique and valuable to offer. I truly believe that we can all learn from each other, and would like to conclude with Laajenna taivaanrantasi, which means let us broaden our horizons. It was an honor being here tonight, and I hope you know a little bit more about Finland and are excited to learn about the next country, Kenya.
Jambo. Jina langu ni Nambi Ndugga. In English, this means, hi, my name is Nambi, and I hope you're enjoying these speeches so far. And I really hope I can keep up the good work. I grew up in Nairobi, the capital city of Kenya, and I'm a member of the Luhya tribe. I moved to the United States 3 years ago, in my junior year of high school, with my parents and younger siblings. This year, I'm a freshman at UNCA, pursuing a French major with a pre-medical focus. Before I begin, I'd like to start out with a disclaimer. As I have stated, Kenya is a very diverse country, and the mistake that most people make is that they assume that because we're all from the same place, that our experiences are the same. That is far from the truth, and I can only give you a personalized view of Kenya in the allotted time. If you want to understand Kenya, you must understand that we have a diverse heritage of Arabic, Indian, Bantu, Nilotic, Kushite, and European influences. The diversity of ethnic groups in Kenya has been an asset to Kenya's development and culture, as it has helped produce different ideas towards the betterment of the country, and has enriched our culture. However, it has also been a hindrance, causing disputes between neighboring ethnic groups and problems within the government. Unfortunately, the people with economic power end up with the political power, which appears to be similar in Mexico, as Nicole stated. The result is that those with the political power end up with better schools, medical care, and infrastructure. In other words, the cultural diversity of Kenya is an important cause of significant inequality in income and quality of life. But I will tell you, I'm optimistic that over time, the political system will not be dominated by the economic interests of a few. After all, Kenyans are a resourceful people, and our country is only 50 years old, a mere child compared to the United States and France. Another reason I'm optimistic is that religion is important to most Kenyans, regardless of their individual culture. Though Kenya is heavily Christian, we have a secular government that encourages the practices of other religions such as Hinduism, Islam, and Judaism. In fact, when I was in school in Kenya, yes, I had off on Easter, but you may be surprised that I also got off on the important holy days of other religions. Still, Kenya is predominantly Christian, and on Sundays the churches are full. Not only that, but Kenyans really like to celebrate their cultural heritage. Going to church in Kenya is a lot more formal and ceremonious than it is in the United States. The church decor is marvelous. The 12 stages of the cross adorns the interior walls of the church, made from beautiful East African mahogany and designed in the traditional East African art style. The priest wears robes made from gorgeous and intricately woven kente cloth. Light streams in different colors from the stained glass windows. The experience is truly ethereal. Amongst all this, there are the worshipers, who woke up 2 hours earlier to put on their Sunday best and get to church early. The women wear beautiful buibus, busutis, kanga dresses, and other African apparel in vivid colors. The men wear matching outfits to their wives, made from either the same cloth or made in the same colors. Services are carried out in Kiswahili, French, English, and Latin, as we have a large international population, and most students are taught these languages in school. Although Kenya has a large degree of religious equality, I do not think this is true of gender equality. The Kenyan society is traditionally a patriarchal one, and the family unit is led by men and male elders. Furthermore, men dominate the important political and business positions. But this is changing. In some communities, women are still treated as second-class citizens. However, with growing legislation that protect the rights of women, this is getting better. Like many other third world countries, in rural areas, fewer women than men are given the opportunities to complete their educations. However, in the cities, the numbers are closer together, and I'm proud to say that in the recent years, the top marks in the senior year exams have belonged to women. With more women entering governmental positions, young women are recognizing the important roles they can play in society outside of the home. Women such as Charity Ngulu, a presidential candidate in the last Kenyan elections and a prominent figure in the government, serve as role models to young women living in rural areas, as well as myself. There are also women like Wangari Maathai, who have gained international renown for advocating for equal education rights throughout Kenya, regardless of the male-dominated society. The main constraint for women is not access to schooling, as that is a constraint for both men and women in underdeveloped rural areas. The main constraint is balancing their education while fulfilling their traditional roles as mothers, wives, and daughters. Also, due to the HIV/AIDS epidemic, many children, unfortunately, are forced to become the caretakers of their families and have to drop out of school in lieu of a job to support their families. I've been in the United States for 3 years, and there are a few things that I like about the United States. Even though Kenya holds my heart, I still have room to admire aspects of the American constructs, such as the American government. Y'all have it good. In your previous elections, there was a significantly larger voter turnout than there was in Kenya. Your government is representative of all 50 states, and every constituency has a representative that allows its place to have an equal footing within the government. Like my fellow speakers, I also admire the American university system. Unlike other systems, such as the Kenyan one, it allows students to pursue academics, art, music, as well as sports. The school system promotes a more well-rounded and informed community, especially for people such as Noora and myself, who like to dabble in academics, or Nicole and Zoe, who get to play their sport as well as pursue academic ideas. Although I like the United States, there's some things that I love about Kenya too, like the resilience of the Kenyan youth. Even when they have to face these problems, the Kenyan youth are resilient. They continue to look on the brighter side and try to better themselves, staying ethically and morally true, an important aspect of the Kenyan culture. And regardless of their situation, many Kenyans continue to look for work or start small entrepreneurships to earn money so that they can continue to educate themselves or educate their families. Second thing is the importance of family. As in Mexico, the family unit is extremely important in the Kenyan culture. A person is nothing without his or her family. In Kenya, the family is the most reliant and trusted support system. Through good times, they celebrate together, and through bad times, they support each other. Examples of this are if a member of the family is in a difficult situation or is heavily affected by the present financial situation. The family will come together and hold a harambe. A harambe is a fundraiser in which each member of the family contributes a small amount of money to help said member get back on their feet. After church on Sundays, most Kenyans get together with their families and have barbecue, as Sunday is considered a day that should be spent with the family, a day to catch up and relax in the presence of your loved ones. If the weather is beautiful, one will see many people in the public parks enjoying the sunshine and playing games with their families. There will also be performers to entertain them, while most people are trying to dodge the birds that are trying to get their food. I also like the privacy afforded to individuals, the privacy that is afforded and respected by the country or the community. In Kenya, people do not pry in familial situations. If there are problems within the family, they're kept within the family and resolved that way. If that problem cannot be resolved in that manner, then close friends are included. And if that doesn't work out, then certified members of the community who are able to deal with these situations are called in. However, many Kenyans enjoy watching reality TV shows and talk shows like Oprah, The Tyra Show, Maury, and Dr. Phil. Whilst many Kenyans watch these shows, they also find it interesting that in the United States, a person would go on TV to talk about their personal family problems. To a Kenyan, the thought of telling the whole country your problem is shocking and quite laughable. Yet, in the United States, giving details about your life to other members of the community is socially acceptable. I especially love the sports culture, the unity brought together by sports such as soccer, rugby, and athletics. Three things that are almost as important to Kenyans as religion and the family. The Premier League, UEFA Cup, and the soccer leagues are often discussed in Kenyan living rooms, pubs, and schools. The teams you follow can make or break friendships, as these leagues are followed almost religiously. In fact, I remember during prep school having school canceled for the World Cup finals. As well as this, rugby is also a prominent sport in Kenyan culture, with the International Safari Sevens being hosted in Nairobi every year. This is a time of camaraderie and fun for the Kenyan people who go out to watch the games, the Bottle of Tusker, and a bunch of friends. The other sport is athletics. Kenya has always dominated the long-distance events in the Olympics, IAAF, and other athletic events. And every time any of these events are on, you will either hear generators being turned on or radio is turned on to catch any live commentary. Some of you may know Eli, who runs for the UNCA cross-country team and track and field teams. He can tell you more about Kenyan running. Kenya is a beautiful country, full of resilient and friendly people. The first thing you will hear when you enter Kenya is, Jambo, Jambo bwana, habari gani, uzuri sana, wageni, wakaribishwa, na Kenya wetu, hakuna matata, which means, hello, hello sir, how are you? Very well, thank you. Visitors are always welcome to our Kenya, where there are no problems. This song is reflective of our genuinely welcoming and forgiving culture. I'd like to say asante sana, or thank you for listening to our speeches tonight, and a big thank you to my fellow speakers who enlightened me to different views about their countries, such as, not all French people are Parisian. The family is just as important in Mexico as it is in Kenya, and that Finland has been voted the country with the best educational system in the world. It is important that we learn from each other. As the world becomes more globalized, we must talk and listen to one another with open minds to move forward in life and learn the important life lessons that will better us as a society. In Kiswahili, this is, kama tunaweza kuongea na sikilizana na watu wengine, tunaweza kwenda mbeleni na kujifunza lesoni za maisha. Thank you all for listening.
Why don't you repeat the question?
Can you please repeat the question?
No.
Oh, should I repeat the question? Okay. What I thought of President Obama. We're very proud of President Obama. He's considered a son of our country because his father is Kenyan and he actually lives quite a small distance from where my grandmother is. His grandmother's village isn't too far away, so got some presidential connections here and there.
Hi, I'm Lee Huff. I'm a junior here at UNCA. I have a question for Zoe. I'm a vocal music major, and a lot of times we have to do a foreign language piece, and I suck at French. And it just makes me wonder, the French language being the most beautiful language I've ever heard, what was the most complicated English word or phrase that you had to learn?
I think to pronunciate TH is really hard. Pronunciation, I think.
I have a question for Nicole. I see that bottle of tequila. I'm just wondering, are you going to give that to the person who asked the best question through this forum? Or?
That hadn't really crossed my mind. I think the person who bought it, being myself, will probably be drinking that.
So you're going to invite us all over after this to come enjoy it with you?
Yes.
Very nice. Thank
That's
you.
Mexican collegiality for you.
And I just thought you guys all spoke really nicely, so I enjoyed being here. Just want to say thank you guys.
Well, thank you. We have to thank Professor Zulak as well, of course, for putting this all together.
They're good people. Oh, this is an alumnus of this event here.
This question is actually for all of you guys. Actually, I know some of you already have been living in US, but do you think after graduate you will be back to your country?
I think some of the things that I talked about, for example, were the educational opportunities, and I think there are a lot of work opportunities as well. So I think in that respect, I think there's a lot of things that I might want to do in the US, but of course my family is all in the US, and then it's just a different culture. It's my heart, I guess, is in Mexico, so I think I may come back, but after college I think I'll be home for a little bit.
I'm probably going to go back in France and just continue school, but in France.
I have lived most of my life away from Finland, in other European countries, but now that I've moved on, and I'm almost 20 years old, and with the free healthcare for me, and with the benefits that I have there as a citizen, it is tempting to go back after I move away from home. But I really enjoy living here in North Carolina, and it is very unique. And I will probably apply for citizenship in a few years. It will help a lot being a non-immigrant as a permanent resident.
Well, like Noora, I guess I'm also more of an international student. I moved a lot around growing up, and I don't think I could ever really settle in one place. So I'd most probably have to move around every 4 years. So I might go back to Kenya, but then not stay there for very long and move on somewhere else.
Thank you. This question is also for all of you. When you first moved here, what was the most surprising thing about American culture for you?
The most surprising thing for me was high schools are very, very, very big. It was extremely large, and it's easy to understand how someone could get lost in the system that way.
I was also surprised by how much the American teens in high school, I could not imagine taking on athletics with education. I really, really value that here, but it must be a lot of pressure. I could not imagine myself doing both at the same time. And I was very surprised about how open and welcoming American people were. Very different from Finnish, who are more conservative and not as welcoming.
I don't really know because I haven't lived what I'm living here in France. I have always living home in France. So everything was new here, and I don't know how it will be in France. But I think I agree with Noora. People are really welcoming, and when I came here, everyone was helping me, and so I guess, yeah, probably it's a difference.
I think for me, one big thing was the meals, for example. In my speech, I talked about how the comida is really important dinner time, and we eat every day. We eat together as a family, even breakfast and lunch and stuff. And then here I find that oftentimes American families, everyone just eats at their own time. And it's for me, that's just an important time to just talk about each other's day. Another thing is, as I mentioned, when you walk into a room, even if you don't know anybody, you go and kiss everyone on the cheek. So then you're basically introducing yourself to everyone. And then here I find that you just kind of go straight to the people you know, and it just, for me, it's just a little bit more awkward, I guess, here, because you don't really talk to people, I guess, you don't really know, so.
I want to ask a question. What do people in your country generally think about Americans?
Well, I can say that in Cancun, which is where a lot of parties are, they're a little bit wild, but they're very fun. Americans are very fun to be around, very welcoming, as I said, very open, honest, and good people.
It's not about the people, but we think everything is really big, everything bigger than in France. And I guess about the food, just fast food and bad food. But I don't really know what we think about people. I don't know.
So we mentioned that everything is big and fast food, of course, but also that the Americans are very hardworking, and a lot of stores are open on Sundays and 24-hour stores, and that is not common in Finland. Everything is, most of the stores in the cities are closed completely on Sundays, so you don't really have anything to do. Or Finnish people have a lot of paid vacation, which is normal, but then you can't compare their work ethic to the American people.
Well, as they said, very big, fast food. Also that the United States is pretty much made up of New York, Florida, Texas, and California. Nothing else exists. But as well as that, there's a big belief in the American dream, going in with nothing and everything opening up to you. It's a little bit idealistic, but there's a lot more opportunity for that happening in the United States than there would be in Kenya.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming, and we've got some cookies and soda that we're trying, and cheese that we're trying to get rid of.